Welcome to Zibby's. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to help launch the release of Under the Palms, Kaira Rouda, and she's here in Howzell. So it'll be about a 30-minute conversation followed by a Q&A and lots of books to buy and sign. So enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Hi, it's a Monday.
It is a Monday. No, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
We really do. Thank you so much. We've been on a similar journey in terms of publishing. We're just catching up. But one thing that's similar is our love of Los Angeles, Southern California, and the weather here. As I was reading Under the Palms, which is incredible, I noticed a theme, and it's fire. And I want to talk about setting before we get into anything. And, first tell us about this beautiful book that's coming out tomorrow officially.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Thanks for doing this too. I really appreciate it. It's funny, I was just reading her book, What Fire Brings, and yes, and it's really good. And I was just starting it, and it starts with fire in the canyon and the whole sense of fire. And Under the Palms is set in Laguna Beach, and the Santa Ana winds kick up. And I think just for anybody living here or who's lived there, I haven't lived here all my life. So when I first experienced the Santa Anas, I'm like, what is this? What is this doing? And, and then having the fire that came to where we lived, that was terrifying. And, it's just that whole notion of fire. When I was a kid, our house burned down as well. So we were asleep and had to run out. So I've always, fire, the power of fire is definitely something that's in the back of my head always.
Yeah. When talking about setting, I always say, people think, oh, California, there's no such thing as weather. It's like, yeah, it's just a different kind of weather. We make allowances for that weather when it's fire season. What do? We buy, Zyrtec and Zaditor and tissue boxes, and it affects everything we do, just as snow affects everybody else of how they live. The same here. Yeah. And growing up, I'm a native of Los Angeles. Yay, I love LA. My husband is too. Inglewood. But we grew up, we're both Gen Xers, and we remember smog alert where you had to stay inside and you couldn't go outside. And it's either you're under the desk because of earthquakes, or you're under the desk because Russia was going to nuke us, or you couldn't go outside because of smog and you couldn't see the city. And that affects everything you do. Fortunately, I live in a city, and so I don't have to think about fire season in the way your characters
got to have it.
Well,
and I think my so this book is about the Kingsley family.
Yes, tell him he didn't read it.
Okay. Come on, you're gonna want to. Yeah, it's a tough crowd. It's a tough crowd. It's a tough crowd. Okay, it's the Kingsley family. They're a wealthy family based in Newport Beach, California. The patriarch. It's kind of Succession meets White Lotus. So every book they kind of are at some kind of exotic location. The last book they were on a mega yacht trip to Catalina Island.
As one does.
Yes, as one does when you're in, and so it's really the patriarch Richard Kingsley is trying to decide who of his 3 children will get the whole shebang. So it's Ted, John, and Sibley all in this rivalry to kind of take over the business. And now we find them in book 2, Under the Palms, at a luxurious resort in Laguna Beach. Probably the Montage, but we don't call it that. It's called the Twin Palms. And so they're also now they're very upset because Paige, the wife of Ted, the youngest son, has been anointed president of the company. And so none of them like that very much.
Yeah. What was the hardest thing about writing the book, besides the weather, which, we all have a visceral reaction to when you're trying to make a book real, and we do that. Other than that, what was hard about not just this book, but the family in itself?
The funny thing about this, I thought Beneath the Surface was just it, right? When I wrote it, it was a standalone book, and then I'm like, finished. And then my publisher said, oh, we'd like book 2 of them. I'm like, oh, well, that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be hard because I hadn't written a series before, especially when I was setting out not to write a series, but turned out they were all still in my head. Yeah. So when I sat down to write, they're like, oh, we're still here, which sounds weird, but they were all just rolling around in there. And so it came out really quickly because they did have more to say, which was really fun. So that, in that respect, it was really fun to already have the all I had to
people,
do
the
was come up
cast.
with the setting.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, where do I want to hang out in my mind? I'll go to the montage and like just hang out
Research.
there. Yeah, it would. But I didn't ever go there. I just like stomped around in my mind.
You didn't go there?
No.
You know you can. You can write it off.
I know. We just went there for my birthday for Friday night. Yeah.
Wait, when's your birthday?
It was Friday.
You're a Taurus.
Yes.
I am too.
Oh, you are?
April 25th.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah,
Yep.
see?
Another connection. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. It was fun. Yeah. So I did stomp around in the montage with my book, but I when I write, I have to be in my office at my desk. I don't go to like cafes. I don't do any of that.
I don't do cafes. I like places like the montage too.
Yeah.
No, he's actually sent me to like Terraneta and all these. That's my love language. We've been married for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want that. Send me to a hotel, a nice one where it's just me and my books and pens. And
I could do
service.
that. Yeah. Maybe I should do that more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe she should do that more.
It's
like they sat together.
We
like,
turn to the husband couch. Yeah. Husband couch. Do you agree? Yeah, we've been married 34. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, in light of that, I mean, the family. Let's talk about the family. They are not these two. They are not like nice people.
No.
I mean, but do you consider them people you love to hate? Like, where do you get inspiration for families like this, people like this, where you're kind of fascinated yet repelled, yet you can't turn away?
Right. Yet they're terrible.
Yeah.
I know. I love writing terrible characters. I don't know. Like, I just always have. And I think there are a few redeeming characters in this book. I mean, maybe a couple, but I've always been interested in beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives and what motivates people. And usually it's money, right? In my books, and they're motivated to keep it, to hold it, to not share it, to grow it, to, and so it's kind of like the ultimate motivator. And actually in this book, I also kind of make a nod to the 80s, like Dynasty and Dallas. It's
Carringtons.
Yes. Yeah, I know. And so I have a character named Crystal Carrington. So for all of you young people, she was
but she doesn't swoop in like
she was the name of a character in Dynasty. So I know it's
I know it's like cool.
Friday
nights. Falcon Crest, anyone?
Yeah, nobody did. But I know. So yes. So Youngins, there used to be like
Youngins.
Come round. Soap opera kind of shows that were like primetime television. Everybody watched, and it was all grown-ups behaving badly. And I just always
but in fabulous Halston gowns.
Yes, always. And they'd have these like fight scenes, and they would all be just dressed to the nines. It was crazy. Yeah. So
that's how you lived back then.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah,
that was how it was in the 80s.
Yeah. So I know
it's just how we rolled. Yeah. Yeah. I know you probably would not like the 80s, but it was fun.
So do you think this is like your happy place? Like I tend to write about women who are in spaces where they don't belong. What Never Happened is a story about a young woman whose family was murdered on Catalina Island. And if you're a child of Los Angeles, Southern California, you take these field trips over to Catalina and look how perfect and beautiful we are, and everyone's happy, and you hold hands and have, fish and chips, and it's lovely. But if you kind of like dig past the perfection, there are serious problems in Catalina between the workers not getting paid right or paid at all, the housing crisis, no water, the deer are not supposed to be there and they're eating things, and the poor buffalo are like, what am I doing
why
here?
am I here? I know.
Yeah, it's problematic.
Which is funny. I mean, Beneath the Surface is set Catalina Island too. And I was doing the same thing. I'm like, whoa, there were so many murders here too. There's like a whole online database of unsolved murder. Yeah.
No, and it's fun, like taking these
the same brain. Oh no.
When I still get I still check in on Catalina because it is kind of buck wild over there. Yeah. But it's a fascinating, scary thing, because people will do anything to keep a place perfect.
Yes.
And that means exploiting people. That means, there's a restaurant on Catalina, Mrs. T's Chinese food. If you go there, it's like Chinese and donuts. And it's like this cute little charming place. And they were in the paper earlier this year. They weren't paying their people. Or if they were making them work 40 hours straight or something crazy like that in this beautiful place. And I think as mystery writers, as crime writers,
it's perfect for us. Yeah.
And it's our job to expose it and say, you think this is perfect.
Yeah,
Nowhere
it's
is
not.
perfect,
No.
right? Right.
Yeah, and it has that kind of 1950s, like everything's great and everything's happy, and
It's like,
no,
no, not at all. Not at all.
probably not.
Come with
Probably
us.
not. Yeah,
We'll
no.
show you.
Yeah, do a little murder tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was the best thing about writing? What was most fun? You had if you haven't read it, they're like maybe interstitial kind of gossipy.
Yes.
Ooh,
My
look at this
OC
family.
scoop. Yeah, and fun fact, I was the gossip columnist in Columbus, Ohio for 10 years.
Columbus, Ohio.
There wasn't a lot of
I
gossip.
was like, what
So
shenanigans
I had to like
are in
make
gossip?
up things, but it was mostly like society, people going to charity events and stuff.
Yeah.
I was really kind most of the time, but yeah,
It's the Midwestern in you.
it is. But I did really like that kind of voice. It was fun. So I did so the book kind of starts up catching you up if you didn't read the first one, just with what happened the last time with this OC scoop voice, and it's really just a character who's kind of like spying on this Kingsley family, and they're fascinated by the Kingsleys, so they really want to tell you what's happening, and they'll pay people to like go stalk them like they do.
TMZ.
Yeah.
And another similarity, mine's isn't scoopy and gossipy, but in What Never Happened, the main character writes obituaries, and she's into this because of what happened to her parents. And we've all read those obituaries where it's kind of cut and paste, and it could be anybody that you're reading about. And her character wanted to honor those who have passed in a more creative, more personal kind of way. And so, my story has kind of like these obituaries of the victims, of course, who are part of the murder mystery. But I'm very now like interested in the shenanigans of hot dish Columbus, Ohio.
Right. I know there was a lot. I know. It's too bad the internet wasn't around yet, or you could pull them all up.
Right.
I'm sure they would be riveting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not really. But it was kind of fun. I mean, it threw people off. Do you remember that, Harley? People were like, "What are you writing?" I'm like, "Oh, don't worry. It's just a little." It was called Connections. Yes, and it was really fun.
Yeah. What was the hardest thing? Even if it's about the fire, because that's what we write. Some is fun and games, some is funny. But there's something there that drives us to write what we write, and we tap into whatever that well is. And for you, what was that like really kind of primal thing that drove you to not just write this book, but like your whole kind of bibliography is about this kind of perfection, but not perfection, and the mean-spiritedness that lurks beneath these facades of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think experience in life, as a novelist, you take everything in, and even before you start writing, just growing up, you're absorbing all these things, and for me, writing has become a way to like process everything and kind of make sense of it. My first big suspense book was Best Day Ever, and when I wrote it at the time, I had no idea where this guy came from. He was just a mean, like sexist, yucky narrator, and he was going to kill his wife. The whole plot is to kill his wife, and he came out of my mind like so fast. I'm like, wow, where did he come from? And I didn't know really until I started on a book tour that it was all of my spectacularly horrible sexist bosses, that they were still rolling around in my head, and it was a way for me to like get them out of my head and into a character and kind of get them out of here. And I'm like, thanks Wes, thanks Myron, goodbye, and you can be all encompasses in this guy named Paul, and then they're gone. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, so, it's like, you were trash. Thank you.
No, and just like kind of showing who they were to the world.
Yeah.
I mean, not naming them by name, of course, but really like in a sense, like just getting them out there so people can see who they are. With Best Day Ever, the best comments I ever got from readers was women who would write and say, I just had my best day ever, thank you, because they got away from these guys, and just like shining a light on those kind of people. So this book and Beneath the Surface are a little bit lighter. There are like deeper themes in there, but they're more hidden, I guess, by more of the lighter side of life. But there's definitely but
there is a streak in there where it's like, oh my God, who are these people? And let me cover my drink.
And what privilege. Well, yeah. And And what privilege can do, because all of a
Yes.
sudden these people, I mean, I am fascinated by billionaires who just live like in the whole world above. They're in our world, but they don't really have to live in our world. There's
Yeah.
no rules like that apply to them like what we have. And so they can just do whatever they want to. And when they drop into our world and they behave that way with, they just think they can control everyone and everything they see. It's like Yertle the turtle. It goes back to that.
Well, yeah, it's scary because it's like folks like that who have everything are looking to become, excited over something. And it's like, if you have everything, if you've done everything and seen everything, what's next? What is going to be that thing that makes you excited?
Right.
And, you don't want to be near that because you don't know. I don't know what that is. It's fascinating and horrifying.
And horrifying, yeah.
And yet it provides us a lot of material as writers.
It does. It's like some kind of insatiable quest because there's never enough, and
there's never enough.
And I also look at that with, I don't know, society in general, like whether it's you want to be the head of some charity organization, or you want to, I think doing the society column also revealed it's not just only about money. It's also about, prestige and all of that stuff can really ruin a person if they don't realize what they're up to.
Well, and I think that's why we're all kind of fascinated with crime in general. I think a lot of people will say, oh, no, I'm not into crime. I'm not into mystery. And I was like, no, you are. I mean, there's a reason why there are thousands of CSIs and Law and Orders and true crime. It's because even if it doesn't affect us personally, even if it's, you're not being assaulted or someone in your life has or will be. And I think books especially are the modern equivalent of the campfire, of where we get that knowledge, that oral tradition of beware, watch out for this thing. And I think women especially are interested because we need to figure out, especially if we have girl children, how to spot the wolf. That's our job, to spot the wolf, so we can say, that's the wolf, stay away from it. And it comes in books, it comes in TVs, music, right?
Yeah. And the wolf is everywhere.
The wolf is everywhere. Yeah. And we'll be writing about it forever. Do you think you'll go back into the, less caper, the darker side of what Best Day Ever was?
I think so. Yeah. I like these guys because it's really like what writing a soap opera in my head and watching. But I do think that I still have some things to work through in life. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
because, life is never static.
Right.
And in different stages of your life, things, you change. My earlier books, I was always writing about my friends and me, either teenagers or 20-somethings who were hot and young and, trotting around Los Angeles being fabulous. But now I have a daughter and she's getting older and I fear for her. And so my characters are now young women who are going out into the world and they have family who are around them and people who love them. And yet it's always someone's daughter. And she sometimes has family around her who loves her. And yet
the wolf is there.
Yeah. So do you find yourself doing that?
Well, I do. I mean, we just recently had 2 of our kids get married. And,
congratulations.
I know, Avery and Paul just got back from their honeymoon. And so now I have this whole like wedding and engagement stuff running through my mind. So I'm totally going to have, the drama of, I'm totally probably going to have a wedding book for sure.
Oh yeah, you have to. Someone's going to be like,
I have to get a little distance from it. Don't worry, it's just going to be fiction.
Yeah.
We've seen it all.
Yeah, we have. I know. When I wrote a book called The Favorite Daughter, and that was not my title. It was just the title they gave it. Avery's like, she's the only girl. I do not like that title. I'm like, I did not pick it. I did not. Yeah. Yeah. Tell her we don't get to pick.
Right. But mommy will buy you something nice to make up for it. No, but and you maybe grandkids. And so whatever you are in your life as a writer, it's always reflected in your storytelling, because there's always something to rail against, to be scared of, to try and fix and understand, so that you can understand it and your family and the people around you can understand it.
Yep.
What's one story you think you want to write but you don't know how to do it yet?
I don't know, probably that wedding story. No, that's a good question. I mean, I have some ideas, like, you know how you have,
Mhm.
because I think what it does, usually my brain does, is it's kind of percolating right now. And it's because I've got those 2 other books this year
Yeah.
too. It's been busy doing revisions. So I haven't had a
Mm.
chance to like kind of sit
Yeah.
and get that one idea that kind of
Mhm.
sparks where you get this idea, and I'm sure you get this
Yeah,
too.
oh,
And then
yeah.
you sit down and you just can't wait to just write. You
Yeah.
just can't wait because it's right there and it's so, yeah. So
And then you're like, what did I just do?
I
This
know,
is
right?
so
Is this
bad.
good or bad? I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, so I don't know that I have that. I mean, it's kind of there, but it's
Mhm.
not like there enough to talk about.
Mhm,
How
mhm.
about you?
Um, there are so many books that I want to write. Every time I open up the internet, there's something crazy. There was recently a story about a guy who was arrested because he'd been pretending to be someone else. The real guy was a homeless man, and he'd taken this homeless man's identity and social security number and all that, and then I think he killed someone and they didn't know until something something something, and it just kept going and going and
Yeah.
going, and it was crazy.
Like a
And I'm
Ripley.
like, save.
Yeah.
A lot of my stories tend to have kernels of real things happening. For what never happened, yes, there's a story. I can't even remember what it was, but something about it was real. The story before that, We Lie Here, is a Palmdale story, and it's basically family and finding out things about your family that you didn't know. And during the pandemic, where we're all like cleaning out closets and all kind, yeah, what was the Marie Kondoing of our lives at that point? I was Marie Kondoing and going through like old things, and I'm like finding like random envelopes. I'm the keeper of the documents in my family. I'm the parliamentarian. And I found an envelope in my mom and dad's stuff. And it said in her writing, "Do not open until my death."
Mm.
And of course, my husband's like, "Open it." I'm like, but she's very much alive.
Yeah.
And no, I don't want to open it because what secret is in this? It may
Right.
not be a secret. It may be,
Maybe.
I don't know. But at 50 something years old, it's a secret. I know. And it's still not open because she's alive. No, I hid it.
It's like I opened it.
But
I
it
already
was
know.
like, that is the perfect start
Yeah.
of a story. And although it's horrifying because it's like, what am I going to learn now?
Right.
It's still kind of like, as a writer,
See, and I like situational things, like when my husband served in Congress. That was such
Oh,
a
that's a
great.
zoo.
It was such a great
Yeah.
thought. Or like all of DC, as June knows. Hello, June. Just stomping around there, and like all these characters just were. I mean, they're all
Yeah.
characters. They're
Yeah.
just all right there. It was so fun. So that one that. Came out in The Widow, which was great and
Yeah.
so fun to write. And Somebody's Home actually came from that too, because during the pandemic, when everything shut down, we were in DC, and then all of a sudden I had to go lickety splitting
Oh,
home,
God,
and
yeah.
he had to keep going back and serving. But I had just had a chance to go to a hearing about domestic terror
Oh, God.
that he was chairing, and these experts, the foremost experts about it, were
Yeah.
there, and white supremacy and all that stuff. And it was chilling and terrifying, and just the fact that it's a global network. So that really became Somebody's Home, my book that came out during the pandemic, because I was thinking, like, what if one of those people were living in your guest house,
Oh, my
and
God.
and
Oh, my
you're
God.
at home, and you're home because it's a pandemic. You can't go anywhere. I wasn't allowed to say the pandemic, but yeah, it was scary.
Yeah.
So like that kind of thing. Yeah.
See, and that's the thing about mystery crime writers. That's fascinating, but it's scary.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
you want to click away because you really are scared. I'm scared of some of the stuff I write.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, well, I can't add. I don't play an instrument well enough to make money from it, but I write well. So I'm gonna try
gonna
that
do this.
thing.
Yeah. I don't know if you've done this. On Beneath the Surface, actually, I was writing it, and I scared myself so much I had to run downstairs. I had to close my computer and run downstairs. And Harley's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, you would
So
not believe what these people are doing." I mean, this is so terrifying. I didn't even see it coming.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's like
it
I'm
was-
surviving.
I know.
Yeah,
Like,
whenever
it was terrifying. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I lived in apartments, I would say up until we got married, and I think we bought our house in 2000, and that was the first time I've ever lived in a house by myself. And I had never heard like the water heater bubbling or, the critters underneath your California basement and all that kind of stuff. And so here I am writing crime and now this haunted house that I picked, it's you do kind of freak yourself out, and you do kind of make sure the things are locked and that no one's following you. And no, it's quite the life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, your
We're
friends,
normal. Everything's normal here.
Everything's good. Everything's good because your friends also know that you write, and whatever it is you're writing, they know that they're going to find themselves somehow in your book. I had a friend who was taking strip pole dancing, and she came, and it was, girls just talking, and she was about to have a recital for pole dancing. I'm like, there's a recital for pole dancing? And she's like, yes. And so she gave me the invitation, and here she is on a pole. And she's on a pole, and, please come to my show. And so it's like, I'm going to take this, right? Yeah. And so I did. And the owners of the secret pole dancing place in Culver City behind the Winchell's and Honey Baked Ham.
That's your spot.
You know where I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
They got a membership.
They reached out to me and they're like, thank you for putting, I guess it was searchable or something, but they thanked me. And it's like, if you want a class, come in. And it's like, little did you know. Did I know that I would be helping the secret pole dance company by the Honey Baked Ham get it on?
Right. It is weird. Like with The Widow, I wrote about the Congressional Club, which is this club, like the first club for spouses that was created back in the 1920s, I think. And then I'm like, they're probably going to kill me, but oh well. So I just had them in. And so then I gave a book talk after it came out. And this one woman stood up, and June, you were there, and she's like, I counted 200 and something citations of the Congressional Club. We are so proud.
Oh,
oh my gosh. I know. I thought for sure they were going to be, and you're out. Get out of here. Don't ever come back.
Yeah.
It worked out.
What's happening next for you?
Next is
other than tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow is the book launch, which is exciting. And then I have another book coming out in August called The Second Mrs. Strom, which is a sequel to Best Day Ever, which I've kind of mentioned, that sequel has been in my head for a long time because Paul, unfortunately, wasn't finished after Best Day Ever. He still needed to say some more stuff. So that's been fun. So that's coming out then. And then in November, what is it called when it's the third? I guess it's like the sequel to the sequel. Trilogy. Yeah, I guess so.
The anti-sequel.
But they were never like written for that. Yeah, the third book of the.
We do words.
We don't know what it is, but anyway, it's
the third in the series.
The third in the series, yes, that comes out, and that will be out in November, and that is set in Malibu, where a lot of these guys are from. Yay! Because we used to live there. And
that's other kind of disasters.
Yes. Yeah. And some nanny stories, which I might have gotten one from Claudine. Yes, that's in this book.
Really?
Yeah.
She's like, huh?
I know, yeah. Maybe. I know, right? Just a light one. Thank you, Claudine.
Do you think you'll ever go back to like an Ohio story? Maybe like.
Yeah. I think so. I think maybe because I kind of hop around to in my mind. So I think Ohio might be next. I think just because I haven't been there for a while. And I'm going back to give a book talk in July. So that'll get me like reacquainted.
That's a story starring Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah. Do we want to open it up for Q&A? Do
you guys have it burning
Ask
questions?
us anything.
You said before you don't pick the title of your book. I didn't know that.
Sometimes.
No, I mean, sometimes like Best Day Ever I did, but since then, almost everything's changed. The Widow was The Widow's Mandate because that's what the premise it was based on, because that's the first way women could serve in Congress was through a dead spouse. But they thought everybody hated the word mandates back then. So when it came out, my publisher, so they chopped off the word mandate. So.
Completely changes the book.
Yeah. For me, I think maybe one was changed.
Oh, really? That's pretty lucky.
Yeah, and I wanted this what fire brings, but last year's is what never happened. So I'm like, oh, we can't have two what's. And my editor's like, no, let's keep that. I like that.
Yeah.
So
I like that title.
You just hope. You just do like this, and
I mean, I did pick Under the Palms and Beneath the Surface, I guess. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
You picked best day ever, right?
Yeah, best day ever.
yes.
Merlin.
So it's been a while since high school, but I remember English class we had to have a protagonist, antagonist, a through line. Do you still have to do that, or a rule?
Oh yeah. You- what young writers, some don't understand. You have to know the rules in order to break the rules. But yeah, you still need someone to root for. You still need someone to hiss against. But sometimes I find that, like even in real life, we're someone's villain. Every hero is someone. Someone hates you, even though you're like, I'm a.
Not with
I don't
them.
know. I thought I was a Pollyanna. I thought I was like really, really sweet. And then one day I got a piece of mail from my cousin who I was like this, and she ran me up and down. She thought I was talking about her in one of my books, and that so she like it's in my I kept it because writers we keep everything. But it was a typed letter, a single spaced 3-page letter of how much she resented me, and I had no clue. I had no clue. And that's why I think, everybody has someone who's looking at them saying they really think that they're smart, or they think that they're this and so holy or so this. And I find it fascinating because no one's perfect. I don't think that like your book does this well, that everybody has that little chip in them that someone's like, that drives them just crazy. So whenever I'm teaching writing, I ask that the young writers in the room don't make them perfect, because no one's perfect. No, who wants to read about a perfect person? No one. They're not fascinating. What's fascinating is that wife who, she kind of cooks and she's kind of nice, but she's pissed off because how many times do I have to go to soccer practice every? It's like there's something that makes you angry and that makes you simmer, and that will maybe one day set you off, and you don't know what that thing is, and no one around you knows what that thing is, but you're going to go off. And that's what you want, especially in what we write, that what's going to make them go off? What's going to be the thing that makes someone take a steak knife and watch someone choke on a piece of filet mignon?
What would happen? I know.
Right.
How would that happen?
Yeah. What do you think?
I think everybody has a ghost in their past. I think we all have something that kind of haunts us that maybe we don't share with others, and and also like that whole fear of failure thing. So there's like all these drivers in human psyche that can converge in a bad way if pushed too far across. I think because it's all about like in our characters, we kind of push our characters to the edge because that's what we kind of feed on, and that's what drives our narrative, right?
Also.
Yeah, so it's and we have to, and that's where when people get pushed to the edge, that's where the drama is, and that's where the bad things can happen.
Yeah, one of my favorite TV series is The Golden Girls, and there's an episode where Rose Nyland, Betty White's character, has a new coworker, and she's always bubbly Rose, and he hates her. She tries to give him a cat. The cat scratches him up, and so he hates her even more. Like she's really trying to make this guy like her, and he doesn't, and she can't understand it. And it's like, well, maybe that's why he doesn't like you, because why are you trying so hard to be my friend? Just kind of leave me alone. So you, sir, I would look, if you're a character in my story, I would mind you. I would find something about you that someone would say, healing bus, huh? That damn green hat, huh? What's underneath that hat, sir? That kind of thing. And you'd be like an incredibly fascinating character. And I would hope that like millions of people would pick up my book and read about you.
You must protect me.
Yes. Everyone from Malibu, create a circle, escort him out.
I know, it's like,
If I see you driving up, I'm gonna like.
but I write you so well that you'd be like, I like that. I like that. Yeah.
Merlin's like, why did I ask a question?
Don't ask the question you don't want the answer to. Yeah. No.
Claudine? Yeah.
Mine's probably more about the writing process. And I know like Elizabeth Gilbert will say like dress up for inspiration, or well, do you guys have anything that you do that keeps the discipline going, where you sit down and just write this book? Like everyone dreams of writing a book, but you guys are actually doing it. You're really good at it. So.
You want to go first?
Sure. Like I think to me the what I've learned over the years is I'm an afternoon writer, which a lot of people write in the mornings, and I just can't do that. That's when I do like work stuff or walk the dogs. But like at 1 o'clock, if I can sit down and just write for a few hours, that's like my happy time and happy spot. But I've also learned that the muse is precious, and if she's not there that day, it's okay to just do something else. I find so many people just have the think they have to have a rigid routine to get pages down. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I like, to me, I'm a pretty fast writer. So if I'm not feeling it that day, I'm like, okay. But this took time to learn too, like just give yourself a break and go do something else. But yeah, I think the key to the whole process of it is showing up and just trying to get words down every day.
Yeah. I still work a day job. I'm a fundraising writer at Cedar Sinai. So I've done that kind of writing, City of Hope, ACLU, and Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, where I have to sit in the seat and write because the CEO of Cedars wants a condolence letter. And so I have to write it, even if I'm not feeling well, if I don't feel like I'm not in the mood, even when I'm trying to write my own stuff on the slide. I have to do it. And so that helps me, one, just have that kind of muscle where, right, okay, I'll write it because that's what I'm paid to do. But also I do get up every morning. It's now 4:30 because I'm tired. I get up every morning at 4:30, except on Christmas morning and when I'm actually on like true vacation. And I write every day until about 6:30, and then do the business of writing afterwards because our kid, she's in college now, but working mom. And so after, I get off work, she was in 2 soccer clubs and leadership. And so I'm all in Santa Monica and driving around creation, with her life. And so that was like the only time really that I got to have where there's quiet and I could have a continued thought. And that takes time. And I allow myself to write bad. I know that first draft is going to be a crap draft. And I know that the second draft is going to be not as bad, but still, it'll need work. But, I have Word and it's free and I can do 7 drafts. And it usually takes me about 7 drafts to do because I only do have that much time. On the weekends, I still get up and I write then to like 9 o'clock. And then he makes breakfast and then, we're good. But I think I'm very kind of anal and, a box checker. I outline my stuff. I allow myself, I allow
Totally
myself to go
opposite.
off road because I know that I have the outline. But that's just my crazy kind of, I think I should have been a Virgo in some ways because I have very Virgo tendencies. But yeah, I think it's more just that time. I only have that much time. And I know that this is the only way it's going to get done for me. I'm hoping one day to like not have all that to do, but I think I'd still get up at 4 because I've done it for,
When I think
20 years or so.
the more you have, the more you do, right? So like, I mean, I was always working in too as well and writing on like at nights, but I'm like a night person, right? So I wouldn't do it during the day, but when the kids were, as soon as they go to bed, I'm like, doing
Oh
that.
my God.
So
I can't even
always had jobs, too.
imagine trying to write. Oh my goodness.
But
My mind
I
is
couldn't get
just,
up early.
No, he's a night creative. I'm I'm just way too knackered. I go to bed at 9:18 every night. Yeah, because it's like I've been up since 9. Yeah, see, I'm that kind of crazy. Yeah.
Dylan.
Hey, Mom.
Hi, Dylan.
Quick question for you.
Sure.
So, as a songwriter, it's fairly formulaic these days in your approach. It's like you have a concept, you make the chorus, and usually work your way backwards. Do you, as authors, feel like you're starting in Act 3 almost at the conclusion of the story and then working backwards? Or do you go word by word, got a little bit of an idea, and then just let it take you where it wants to go?
I have the idea because I saw it on the Google Nets, and I start kind of like living with it, and then I get the ending. I know who I kind of want to have done it and who's dead, and then I work backwards. But then when I start actually outlining it, I find that that's all wrong. And so that's when I start actually with the Post-it notes and the index cards and start kind of, I use Save the Cat, which is a writing software. And then I kind of plot it out, and I'm still wrong. I'm wrong all up until the third draft, where it's like, oh, that's what my story is about. And then I kind of start over again. But it's always the idea of this is a wild story, and I somehow want to tell it or mix it with another wild story I read 30 years ago. And then the process starts of actually trying to just slot it in the best kind of way.
Yeah, not me. I am totally opposite. Yeah, I get
Like Laverne and Shirley.
We are. I know.
Yeah.
I get like a character usually pops into my head, and then a setting, and it's usually either California or Ohio, and then I'll just start writing, and so I just start out, and then other characters will appear. Like, I mean, with this book, I think they're like 5 point of view characters, and that's really fun because I don't know. I just like having a cast that's waiting off the stage, and then they're like, wait, I want to talk. Yeah, they're like, it's my turn. And then if somebody's trying to say too much, like if they're going to give something away, then I move them off, and then somebody else comes on. But I don't have an outline. I mean, so what I have to do now, because my agent always wants to know what I'm writing about, so I have to, I write the whole book, and then I go and make an outline, and then I send them the outline and say, hey, how does this sound? And then, sometimes they're like, I don't like that at all. I'm like, oh, darn it, because I've already written the whole book. Yeah, so then I have to write another book.
So what is it about that you don't like?
I know, yeah, it's terrible, that part. But now I've said that too often in interviews, so they probably know this is what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah.
But I just can't help it. If I outline, it takes all the life out of my characters. They just don't meet, and they won't talk anymore. They're just
see. I'm the up. Well, it's still the same for me, because my first drafts, whenever my agent wants to read my first draft, I hate it because I know what she's going to say. The characters aren't like your typical characters. You're kind of flat. And for me, it's like, I don't know these people. Yes, they're flat. I have no idea who they are. I don't know what the story is, which means I don't know them. And it needs like 2 more drafts for me to know that she's a Virgo and he's a Cancer, and that they should not be together. But yeah, it takes time to understand, even when you're outlining, what this is.
Yeah.
I mean, this coming out
not outlining it.
I have tried, and it made me nervous the entire time.
Really?
And it's like, I can't wait to get back to the outline so I can go back. Yeah.
I can't do it that
No,
way.
I don't think I don't live that way. That's his job. Yeah. I'm the organizer. He's the free spirit. And, together
he's the organizer.
Yeah.
I'm the
See,
free spirit.
you can't have 2 Mustangs. You have to have that Clydesdale that just comes and plods.
You're my Clydesdale.
Oh, here comes the king. Here comes the big one.
Oh my God.
Yes.
You mentioned Save the Cat software
I love Save the
based
Cat.
on the book.
Mm-hmm. The regular screenplay software. Yeah, and they have Save the Cat writes a novel too.
Ooh.
So
They
yeah.
have Save the Cat software for writing screenplays?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love it, especially if you're into like things and doodads and moving. And I guess this is where this bill for AI. This is where AI is good, when it helps with that stuff, like helping with outlines and doing all that stuff that we don't like doing, like taxes, that kind of thing. But let me write my story. I want to write my own story. I love this part. And Save the Cat is one of those that it's not necessarily AI, but anything that it's a computer and tells you spelled a word wrong, for me, is AI. But it helps with typing your book. Is it a Harry Potter type book? Is it a whodunit? Is it? Yeah. So if you should check it out. I absolutely, before it was in my life, I don't know how I wrote, but yeah, it helps with figuring out what your story should be and where things should happen. Because going back to your question, yes, things should happen at a certain point, at between pages 1 to 90. These things should have happened by then, especially with what we write, because there has to be like that kind of pacing. And Save the Cat helps with that type of, this should have happened by now.
It looks for certain cues.
It tells you as you're planning what you should think about when you're writing. It doesn't do it for you.
I know. I'm like Microsoft Word.
See? Yeah.
Yeah. I do have the book. Yeah. Well, Avery keeps trying to teach me this because she's a screenwriter.
It's software, right?
It's software, right? But
Yeah.
you know, in addition to that,
Cat's not working.
but I also find, in addition to the software, just reading screenplays in general is a great way of figuring out pacing. And reading poetry, it's just, especially for me, I find when I'm trying to be inspired about setting, because poetry says the most beautiful things in the least amount of words. And whenever I'm stuck, I will just randomly read a poem and it's like, oh, that's beautiful. Or a song.
That's a nice idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned screenplays. Are you guys writing screenplays of your books for?
I
The
try to
screen?
write screenplays, but it's an art. You know,
It's a different form.
it's a different form. And I like the sprawl of a novel. I like, you know, just kind of going on and on and on and spending time. Whereas screenplay is like that. And I, you know, any screenplay writers, any other type of artists, I respect that. And I'm not trying to shoehorn myself in the process, because I do what I do well. I want the other creatives around me to do that thing and take it from me. I mean, I'm sure you have some things optioned and all the rest of it. They'll ask, do you want to write the screenplay? No, but I would like to like look over the, you know, your shoulder to make sure that, you know, things are correct. But I think,
You know, well, and I didn't want to either. And then Avery, my daughter's a screenwriter. And so,
oh, really?
yeah, so she and I have collaborated on a bunch of my books. And I've learned so much with her. And we
Yeah.
collaborated on Final Draft. Is that the?
Oh, I have
the
that one too.
software. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So she taught me how to use that so we can do it in real time, which is really fun. So that's been fun. But I agree, like she does all the really important chunks that say like in just a few words, like
Yeah.
everything about the setup. And then I do the dialogue.
Mhm.
And then she does like all the important chunks that say the really important things.
It's
And I
art.
like this.
Yeah, it's
'cause,
art.
that's kind of how we roll, right? And she'll be like spending all this time just getting the right word in this one paragraph. And she's on page like 12. And then she'll say, "Where are you?" And I'm just throwing in dialogue.
You're a puker, I'm a bleeder.
Yes.
Ah.
Drop.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
She's just like, oh.
Yeah, and I'm like,
So you're my
Well,
people.
yeah.
Poetry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just dialoguing away.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Get back to page 12. Where's your cursor?" I'm like, "Over here."
Yeah.
Also, you know your book, so like it's easy for you to just copy it over.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure it feels like a movie when I go through it.
Yeah.
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 Again, it's an art, and
It
I
is.
appreciate all of it. Did you have a question? I thought I saw your hand. No?
Whoa, no.
Oh. Okay.
I get, like, what is it as a creative? When did you know that this form of creative was the one that you wanted to do the most? Like when did you decide that this is it? Was it something happened, or you've always loved writing, or like what was it that brought you to becoming an author?
Yeah, I'm the daughter of a professor and a school teacher, so I grew up like surrounded by books. So I just remember always having a bookshelf. But in third grade, our teacher said to write to the person that you wanted to become
It's
when you
always
grew up.
third grade.
Yeah, and so I wrote to Robert McCloskey, and he wrote "Make Way for Ducklings" and "Blueberries for Sal," all my favorite books at the time. And he actually wrote me back and said, you know, "Dear Kaira, thank you for the letter. I'm an illustrator, not an author. Pick better next time." I'm like, "Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir." But anyway, that, you know, yeah. So, you know, it took a little while to recover. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, but I did know like from third grade, and just, yeah. You too?
Third grade is always like this pivotal point in people's lives. For me, it was that I could actually be an author. It wasn't until my 20s. I was surrounded. This was, you know, bookstore. Oh my God. But a library was even better because you had the card and it was official. And I loved books. And, you know, being the Gen X baby, you know, I remember being 10 years old reading V.C. Andrews and not Judy Blume, like her young stuff, like Deanie, but Wifey, you know, and Stephen King and Jackie Collins and all these things. And it's like, I loved genre. I didn't even read like Sweet Valley High because it's like Sweet Valley High. there are kids in the attic who are brothers and sisters sleeping with each other. That was my like jam. But I loved words, and I wanted to be in advertising. And that was what I thought I was going to be.
I wanted to be Darren Stevens.
I wanted to be a nun.
Oh, you wanted to be a nun?
And I wasn't Catholic. An advertising nun. But, imagination. It's like, that I wanted to be a nun and a Marine. I think it was the uniform thing.
Yeah.
But Darren Stevens from Bewitched.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to be, either an author or Darren Stevens. And so I did the Darren Stevens route for a long time. I was in advertising and marketing. And
the Dick York Darren Stevens or the other?
I think the original Darren
That's
Stevens.
how old I am.
Yeah, CP too. Yeah. But I do think advertising and marketing, it teaches you how to write, because I feel like I've written everything, like from a TV spot to everything. So you just sit down and somebody says, I need this in an hour, you write it, and that just kind of trains your brain to be able to write.
And I found being a novelist actually helps in my day job, because I'm a fundraising writer, and my job is to convince people with means to buy that machine that does that WYSIWYG thing to save people's lives, or support this thing over here. And it's all about story. Yeah. People need to know that they are the hero in this story, and that Cedars-Sinai, we're not doing this. You are doing this. You are making this possible. And as a storyteller, it just kind of comes to me naturally to make people not only the villains, but also the heroes of these stories that they don't see themselves in. And at least if I'm going to have a full-time job, it's that kind of job where it's like, okay, I'm helping do something other than, going to Macy's and buying things. It's more than just being a capitalist sometimes. Yeah. Anybody else? Anything?
I have something. So just from curiosity, so you talked about your publishers. And so do you guys remember the first time that you submitted something and they came back and said, this doesn't fit, rewrite this, no, like all that kind of stuff? Can either of you talk to that kind of situation?
Always.
Yes.
Always.
I started submitting in 1997, 98. And this was before the internet thing. And you'd come to a bookstore and you'd buy that big agents, editors, children's book. That it was a big compendium. Book. Yeah, and you flip, and then you send some pages in snail mail with a self-addressed stamped envelope that you would get with an unpersonalized slip of paper, book slip.
Thank you, no thank you.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Here, to whom it may concern.
Yes, we're not interested. We're not looking for what you're writing right now, or something like that.
Yeah, and that was, that was fun.
And that would take forever too, because you submit it, and then you oh my gosh,
did I put enough stamps on it?
Yeah, because you'd send a big packet, and then they would just send this terrible.
Yeah. But then the internet came, and so the misery came quicker.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost instant misery as opposed to
misery. Yeah, instead of like going to the mail every day, and so it was hard, because even we're well published and we've done a lot of books. It still hurts when someone tells you no, and it's like, don't you know who I am? And they're like, no. And so I've kept all the letters that I've ever received, because they started getting really interesting for me. My first book was published the first anniversary 9/11, and as a Black writer, this was also a time when there was Sister Souljah, Omar Tyree, all this kind of East Coast urban fiction. And publishers, especially back then on the East Coast, had an idea of what Black life was. And especially if you're living in the city, especially if you come from a working class environment. And looking outside at Los Angeles with our palm trees and blue skies, me being, born in South Central LA, it just wasn't urban enough. And I got letters saying, we like this, but your voice isn't Black enough. For real. And I have the letters. And, it's like, I've been Black all my life, and you're telling me it's not enough? Well, damn, how Black do I gotta be? So it was exhausting hearing that, especially from East Coast publishers who had no idea what it was. One, to be living in California, period. They don't understand us back here and how life is, in Southern California. But then, I didn't stop. What happened for me, I just kept writing. And this was in my 30s when life starts happening, like on a bad slope when people are getting old. You're having kids, and some of your friends are divorcing. Like all the life stuff starts happening when you're in your 30s. And I was going through a lot of that. But as I was getting these rejections after being published by a big house, my first book, you just keep writing and writing. And I used writing as my therapy. And every book that was turned down, I was getting closer and closer to that thing that I wanted to write. And it was crime. I wanted to do something. Waiting to Excel meets Walter Mosley's Devil in a Blue Dress. And I did it. And that was the first of my series, which relaunched my career. And that it was published in 2014. And, it's like, it was hard being told no, being told that you weren't enough or too much or something. But for me, I used it, writers, if we're one thing, we're petty. And, being insulted is like our fuel. And I used it to get closer and closer to what my dream was. And especially being a writer where, you professionally kill people, I use that also as a fuel of what makes me angry, what hurts me, what will drive me to get up at 4:30 every morning to write a story. And it is that, seeking redemption, proving people were wrong about who I am and what I wanted to write in my vision. So yeah, it's been quite an interesting 20 something, 24, 22 years of this whole journey. I look to him because when we were first dating, I'd read bad prose to him in my studio apartment downtown. And he's like, this is really good. And, it's a blessing to have support, people who believe in your dream and think you're talented. So yes, thank you for all the friends and family who surround this woman. Because it is hard.
It is.
It's not a trifle to get up and write and to, do this and maintain a family and try and keep people happy and try not to feel guilty for taking time away from your family to do this thing. So yes, support is really important, especially those times when people tell you no. And folks are like, well, she shouldn't be sad because she has 20 books.
Yeah.
It's like, it's sad. Every one of these things are very special and tender to us. So to have that kind of support system is very important, and to have writing friends too.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for being, and thank you guys all for being here. We really appreciate it very much, and yes, and thank you, Rachel.
Oh,
really nice talking to you.
Thank you. Good luck. He's going to say something official.
Yeah, we have a bunch of books here up front to purchase.
Yeah, I think.
Yay, it was so fun. It was really fun.